Jimin, Jimn. Jimin says, due to an unfortunate fire, I lost my shop and its contents. Oh, I'm so sorry. They then immediately add in parens, don't worry, life, everything is just sticks and bricks. We shall rebuild it. Insurance is apparently covering things well, and they have no issues at this time. And they'll have some money for tools and supplies. And the question is, what should they focus on first? They want to buy it all now and have it all now, but they're having some mental moments, shiny objects, and they want to make sure they spend wisely. This is lovely because most shops, I think most shops are this. Most shops are organic spaces that began with a bench in the space. Then someone worked on that bench and they put some shelves over here for some stuff they needed to work on. And then they slowly, that's the story of this space, is me starting on a bench in that other room, slowly building out the infrastructure. You've watched so much of it over the last decade, until there is a shop around me. I have never moved into a blank space with the let's make a shop out of this space right now. And it's a great opportunity to try a different model than the organic one. Now, the organic one has the benefit of, like, each thing that you're trying, you've been thinking about it for a while. You're experiencing the space. So if you have the budget and the time to rebuild this shop, I would start with the workbench, because I've had a lot of different workbenches, but until I got this magnificent one that was built for me, we'll include a link in the description to the video in which it arrived, and I learned how to use it and everything. But having a real workbench, having a expensively built, highly refined bit of equipment that is the workbench, it changed my life. Having a solid thing to work on changed my life, changed my woodworking, changed my practice. It just was an excellent addition to the shop. I would start there. I would start there with what you'd consider to be your main workspace. I'll remind you of the shop axiom that a horizontal surface that will soon be covered. In every shop, a horizontal surface is not far from getting covered. And so take that into account when you're making your shelving and your racking. When you are making your shelving and your racking, I would make it to hold at least 10% more of everything than you currently possess. JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs, has a wonderful term for that. When you make a storage system that includes more storage than you currently need, they call the extra storage baby fat, because you'll grow into it. That is a great term of art, man. I love a good term of art. Sorry. You also, I don't know about you, but when I'm building shelving, I'm always just like, do I have enough plywood to make this? I'm never like going out and looking at industrial shelving or shop shelving or anything like that, especially since I'm, fully ingrained in here. But if I was looking at a space from scratch, I might very well start to look at things like, well, the home shop space area has gotten highly refined in the past 20 years to outfit garages for dudes to work on their cars. I believe that's the exact demographic that they're shooting for. So there's lots of great garage tool storage systems, floor standing systems. I've been doing so much work on the lathe, I realized I need a rubber pad for the lathe, because I've been working in a lot of steel. When you work in steel and it gets on the floor, it gets crunchy, it gets in your shoes, it scratches up your floor at home. It's rough stuff. So right now I'm in the process of adding some floor mats to the cave. But with the advantage of being able to start from scratch, you could go buy some solutions. Oh, also, I would build a model of the space you're going to outfit in scale. I love 1 inch equals 1 foot scale, which is 1/12 scale. That is dollhouse scale. That's a little big to do your whole house in. Dollhouse scale makes your house quite large, even if you're in a small house, because dollhouse scale is pretty small. At any rate. I would make a model of the space you're going to populate and build some of the stuff that goes in it. Put your eye down there, look around. Like, that matters. Is there a window? What goes around the window? Oh man, you're going in, you could put in copper air. You could put in exhaust. You can do all this stuff that's harder to do once you're moved into a space. And you're saying, what would you avoid? I would be rigorous about what you need in the space versus what doesn't need to be in the space. There are tools that I keep in storage because I use them once every 3 years. They don't need to be in my visual line of sight. And I, over the years, get more and more merciless about what should leave here and go into deeper storage. What would I avoid? I would avoid deep shelves. I know I used to say that drawers are where things go to die. I no longer believe that. I now feel like I know how to integrate drawers into my practice and make them purpose-built and make them useful to me. But shelves, deep shelves, are absolutely where you can lose stuff, because you put something on the shelf and you put something else on the shelf and the first thing gets pushed to the back and you won't see it for 15 years until it's covered with dust. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't know I had this still. So I don't build shelves any deeper than 12 inches here in the cave. That is literally the maximum depth that I'll allow, because that's the depth that keeps me from having to put stuff behind stuff. And add plenty of storage on the z-axis. Add high storage on the z-axis. That's going to be like, even if you need a stool to get up there, even better. You can put you can get a lot of storage way out of your way out of your hair and way out of your hands if you put it up high. There's always more room for storage on the z-axis if you're paying attention. Wayfarer asks a really specific design question. Are there any fonts or typefaces, vintage or contemporary, that inspire you as a maker? Yeah. I got my start, one of my first adult jobs was as a graphic designer in New York in the mid-'80s, which was before the computer, before the first Macintosh. They literally got a Mac 2 SE as I was leaving. So I was doing all the hand-operated graphic design stuff, type specking, estimating how many characters I had in an annual report, ordering the type from Sotronics printer, which was a film printer where a guy sat there with a cigarette and did all the kerning for you. I can't stress enough how important graphic design was for me as an aesthetic tool for being able to see whether something communicates or not. Because the whole goal of graphic design is communicate the whole thing as fast as possible. That's also the goal for stuff like this. That's the goal for a Star Wars ship. It's the goal for the droid that I designed last week. Graphic design is a fantastic practice for learning how to like blur your eyes and see how something gels and see how it flows. And when I was a graphic designer, I got interested in fonts, and I noticed that there were fonts I loved, that there were fonts I couldn't get enough of, that I wanted to design everything. And it turned out to be two main fonts. One is Futura Extra Bold. Well, actually, the whole Futura family, the entire Futura family. I am inclined towards the bolds and the extra bolds, but I also like the italics. I like the bold condensed. I like the extra bold condensed. I like the wireframe. Futura is a monster of a font. It's got a great attitude to it. It's graphically as clear can get. It was Stanley Kubrick's favorite font. I didn't know that when it became my favorite font, although it's certainly plausible that I could have found that out and then made that my favorite font. That's totally like me, but that's not the case here. Commensurate with Futura, I love the juxtaposition between a sans serif font like Futura and a serif font. And my favorite serif font is Caslon, designed, I believe, by William Caslon. It's it's old. It's an old font. I think Futura is a early 20th century font, and Caslon is, I think it's a couple hundred years old, at least. The line weights on Caslon, the letter forms, are really beautiful. And if you're watching me talking about this and you're thinking, man, he's waxing so passionately about fonts, I want to tell you, like, go study fonts. a bit. Go note to yourself how readable something is. Print up something important to you and print it up in 5 different fonts, and like you will start to become a font nerd. It's a lovely place to be. Letter forms and their ability to communicate literally created our entire world, for better and absolutely for worse. But it all rests on the foundation of the ability to write stuff into characters and pass it on to each other. When I wrote Every Tool's a Hammer, I don't think I have a copy in sight here. When I wrote Every Tool's a Hammer in 2018, they asked me, Simon & Schuster, hey, do you have any font thoughts? And I'm like, yeah, I have font thoughts. And I gave them this spiel, Futura and Caslon. And they were like, great. And they sent me a mock-up of the cover. And I was like, that doesn't look like Futura. And I'm like, is this Futura? And they're like, we don't know. I'm like, could I talk to the designer? And they're like, no. And I said, could I see the Photoshop file? They're like, no. So I took the thing that they'd sent me. I put it in Photoshop. I wrote out the title in Futura and laid it over. And sure enough, they hadn't chosen Futura. And so I complained, and they did. They used Futura for the cover. But in the first edition of Every Tool's a Hammer, they did not change their bullshit sans serif font on the spine of the book, underneath the book cover. So the first editions have a black cloth cover, and the title on the spine, Every Tool's a Hammer, is not in Futura, and it's ugly as crap. It's bad.
Thank you for watching that video. Are you as sick of the tosses to membership as I am? Good, because here's a brand new one that I recorded today, and it's nice and short. There are 3 tiers to Tested membership, and they all offer awesome stuff. Find out about it by clicking the join link below. We'll see you there.